What if I told you that your peace is the loudest thing he'll ever hear from you? See, most people expect chaos after a breakup, tears, anger, late night texts. But when a woman chooses silence over reaction, when she walks away without a scene, it shakes something deep in a man. That's not just maturity, that's power. He didn't expect this version of you. The one who isn't checking his stories, the one who isn't begging for closure, the one who isn't falling apart. Instead, you're glowing, growing, moving forward with grace. And that, right there, is where it hits him the hardest. Because when you don't fight for someone who expected you to, it forces them to fight with their own thoughts. This video is about that exact moment, the mental shift he experiences when he sees you've moved on, not just physically but emotionally, when you've disconnected on a soul level, when the silence becomes so loud that he starts questioning everything. You'll learn why men often come back after you've let go, but more importantly, you'll understand why your peace is your revenge. Not because it hurts him, but because it heals you. So before we dive in, I want you to remember this. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to chase to be chosen. You don't have to beg to be remembered. Just be still, be radiant, be unbothered. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can say is absolutely nothing. Let's talk about how a man feels when he sees that kind of woman. There's something haunting about silence, especially when it comes from a woman who used to care loudly. He was used to the texts, the calls, the emotional check-ins, even the arguments. As strange as it sounds, that chaos validated him. It reminded him that he still had a place in your life, even if it was through tension or pain. But when you stopped responding, when you didn't chase or explain or try to fix it, that silence became louder than anything you could have said. It's not that men don't notice your absence, it's that they don't expect it to feel so permanent. At first, your silence confuses him, then it unsettles him. Because if you're not talking, you're not hoping. If you're not reacting, you're not hurting. And if you're not hurting, that means you're healing without him. This is where his ego and emotions start to clash. On the surface, he might act unbothered. He may post like he's thriving, laugh like nothing's wrong, or pretend like he's already moved on. But underneath that performance is a growing discomfort. Because your silence takes away his control. He can't predict your next move. He can't soothe his guilt with your attention. He can't feel needed, desired, or superior. You've removed him from the center of your world, and that shakes his identity. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't need you to understand my worth. I already do. It's emotional discipline. It's feminine strength. And it's the very thing that forces him to start reflecting instead of deflecting. When you stop filling the space with your energy, he's left with his own emptiness. And sometimes, that's the only thing loud enough to trigger regret. Your silence isn't punishment, it's peace. And ironically, that peace often becomes the storm that wakes him up. So when he sees you no longer reacting, no longer waiting, and no longer giving him free access to your emotions, that's when it hits different. Not because you're being cold, but because for the first time you've become untouchable. And that's a feeling he never saw coming. There's a very specific moment when it finally clicks for him. You're really gone. Not just physically, not just giving him space, but truly, completely, emotionally gone. And when that realization hits, it's not quiet, it's not calm, it's a mental and emotional jolt, a shock to his system that he didn't see coming. See, most men assume they have time. They believe that no matter what they say or do or don't do, you'll still be there, that you'll always be available in some form, even if it's just emotionally. Maybe you're still watching his stories. Maybe you're liking a post here or there. Maybe you're throwing subtle signals that you still care. That little thread of connection keeps him comfortable, safe, in control. But when that thread is gone, when he realizes you're not reacting, not checking, not missing him out loud anymore, it creates a silence that turns into a scream in his mind. That's when he starts retracing his steps. He'll revisit old messages, reanalyze your last conversation. He'll notice the things he used to ignore, the way you stopped asking questions, how your tone shifted, how your energy slowly detached long before your goodbye. It's not just the absence that shocks him. It's the fact that he didn't notice you slipping away until it was too late. At first, he may convince himself you're bluffing, that you're just being dramatic, that eventually you'll reach back out because you always do. But days turn into weeks. You stay quiet. You remain composed. You move forward, not with bitterness, but with grace. And that's when the panic creeps in. Not just because he misses you, but because he realizes you've stopped missing him. There's nothing more sobering to a man than seeing a woman who once poured into him, now pouring into herself. That glow he once took for granted is no longer in his life. It's online, in your smile, in your peace, in your progress. And it hits him that someone else might experience the version of you he didn't appreciate. That shock forces him to confront the one thing he tried to avoid the entire time: accountability. He may try to distract himself, jump into something new, or act like he's unbothered. But the truth is, that realization stays with him. Quiet moments hit harder. The things you said start to make sense, and the very love he assumed would always be within reach suddenly feels out of his league. By the time he truly understands your worth, you've already rebuilt yourself, and that's the part that hurts him the most. Not that you left, but that you never looked back. When a man finally realizes you're really gone, it doesn't just sting, it echoes, because peace leaves a void that chaos never could. And now he's the one left wondering what he lost, while you're busy living what he never gave you. In the beginning, he felt in control. Maybe he was the one who pulled away. Maybe he thought you'd always chase. Or maybe he assumed that your emotions made you predictable. He believed he had the upper hand, emotionally, mentally, energetically. Whether he admitted it or not, he was used to knowing exactly how you'd react. If he ignored a message, he knew you'd double text. If he disappeared for a few days, he figured you'd ask where he went. That control wasn't always about power. Sometimes it was about ego, the comfort of knowing that you still wanted him, even if he didn't show up the way you deserved. But when the pattern broke, when your energy changed, and you no longer responded the way he expected, that control started to slip. At first he thought it was temporary. Maybe you were just upset. Maybe this was your version of playing hard to get. But the more you stayed consistent in your distance, the more confused he became. And confusion for someone who once felt in charge is deeply unsettling. You're not angry, you're not cold, you're just unavailable, emotionally, mentally, and energetically. That shift hits different because it's not forced. You're not doing it to teach him a lesson. You're doing it because you finally learned yours. Now he's stuck in a loop of mental questions. Did she meet someone else? Why isn't she reacting? Was she ever really that into me? He's trying to solve a puzzle where all the pieces used to fit, and now nothing does. You're not acting like the girl he knew. That girl gave too many chances. That girl explained herself. That girl tried to fix things. But you, this version of you, you've evolved. And here's the thing. When a man loses control of the woman he once took for granted, he doesn't just question her. He starts to question himself. That's when the confusion multiplies. Was he wrong about the connection? Did he misread her loyalty? Did he mistake her softness for weakness? That internal conflict creates tension he can't shake. He thought he had time. He thought he had power. But you took it all back, not with revenge, but with redirection. Now every time he looks at your page, hears your name, or passes by a memory, he's reminded that the version of you he controlled no longer exists. The balance has shifted, and the irony, he could have kept you, but he chose to gamble with your love. Now that it's off the table, he's the one left spinning, from control to confusion. That's the journey he never expected to take, because while he was busy playing it cool, you were building clarity. While he thought he had options, you were learning boundaries. And now that he's ready to figure things out, you've already figured out that peace is better than potential. By the time he regains clarity, he's lost access. That's when confusion becomes his new normal, and your silence becomes the answer to every question he never thought he'd need to ask. Regret doesn't usually hit a man all at once. It creeps in, slow, quiet, almost unnoticeable at first. It begins in the small moments he used to overlook. The way you laughed at his jokes, the way you listened when he barely said anything, the way you stayed even when you were hurting. At the time, he didn't see the value in those things. He thought they were normal. He assumed your love was constant, guaranteed, like background music he'd grown used to. But now, in your absence, the silence feels deafening. And that's where regret starts to take root. At first, he tries to distract himself. Maybe with work, maybe with friends, maybe even with someone new. But the problem with distraction is that it never really heals. It just delays the breakdown. Eventually the reality sets in. You're not coming back. You're not checking in. You're not waiting around for him to finally get it. And that's when the flashbacks start hitting harder than any warning you ever gave him. He begins to remember the little things. The messages you sent just to say you were proud of him. The way you noticed the things he never had to ask for. The loyalty you gave so freely. And most of all, the way you still loved him on the days he didn't deserve it. These aren't just memories, they're reminders of the version of himself that was loved deeply and didn't know what to do with it. Regret isn't just about missing someone. It's about realizing you were loved properly and still lost it. And once a man realizes that kind of love won't circle back around, it starts to haunt him. He'll look at the people around him and suddenly notice the difference. The conversations aren't as deep. The energy isn't as safe. The loyalty feels conditional. And that comparison becomes a weight he can't shake. He might start reaching out, liking your photos, leaving subtle signs that he's still there. But it's not because he's ready. It's because he's restless. Because regret has taken the place of your presence. And as much as he tries to cover it up with ego or silence, deep down he knows he fumbled something rare. And what makes the regret even more painful is knowing it could have been avoided. He had the chance. He had the time. You gave him the warnings. You gave him grace. But now your energy has shifted. You're no longer accessible. You've outgrown the version of yourself that settled for half love. That's when it truly sinks in. Regret doesn't scream. It whispers in the middle of the night, in the places you used to be, in the version of him that can't undo what's been done. By the time he realizes what he lost, you've already become a woman he no longer has access to. And no apology, no memory, no last-minute effort can rewind time. Regret isn't just painful, it's permanent when it arrives too late. There's a special kind of glow that comes after the healing. It's not just your skin, your smile, or the way you walk into a room with your head high. It's in your energy. It's in the peace you wear like armor. And the most powerful part, he sees it, whether he admits it or not. He notices the difference. And watching you glow without him, that hits on a level nothing else can. Because he remembers when you were dimming your light just to keep him comfortable. He remembers the days you held back your dreams, softened your voice, quieted your needs, just to avoid losing him. He remembers the version of you that would have dropped everything to answer his call. And now that version doesn't exist anymore. Now you're glowing in ways he didn't think were possible without him. You're evolving, posting with purpose, smiling with intention, living in your lane, and moving in alignment with your worth. And what's worse for him, you're not pretending to be okay. You actually are. That effortless glow, that peace, that radiance. It's not staged, it's earned. He scrolls and sees it. Maybe he sees you out with friends, traveling, achieving goals, or simply laughing, genuinely, freely. He starts to realize you never needed him to glow. You just needed to stop pouring into someone who left you empty. And now that all that energy is being poured back into you, the difference is undeniable. There's no begging, no proving, no updates sent his way. You're no longer trying to show him what he lost. You're just living. And that's what makes it sting. Because when a man sees the woman he once had glowing without him, he doesn't just miss her, he starts to doubt himself. He starts to wonder, was I ever enough for her? And deep down he knows, he wasn't ready for the version of her that she's become. And the irony is he might have thought you'd crumble without him. He expected a breakdown, a desperate message, a quiet return. But instead he got silence, progress, a woman who chose herself over history. And that glow, it's not meant to hurt him, but it will. Not because you're being petty, not because you're putting on a show, but because your happiness no longer includes him. And that's a truth his pride never prepared him to face. So now, he watches, from a distance, silently, regretfully. And every time he sees you win, it's a reminder that while he was unsure, you were becoming unforgettable. Your glow is not about revenge, it's about rebirth, and he doesn't get to be part of it anymore. You're not just glowing, you're gone. At some point, the silence becomes too loud to ignore. Not yours, his. The silence between what he feels and what he shows, the internal war between his ego and his emotions, starts to boil over. And that's when everything gets complicated. See, his ego was never afraid of losing you. It was afraid of looking like he needed you. That part of him wanted to be the one in control, the one who didn't care, the one who could walk away untouched. He told himself he could do better, that you'd come back, that if you didn't, someone else would take your place. His ego needed to win, even if it meant losing something real. But his emotions, those were never as bold. They whispered instead of shouted. They showed up late. They didn't know how to speak until the damage was done. At first, he buried them, pushed them down every time he thought of you, laughed them off, covered them with distractions and temporary replacements. But emotions have a way of resurfacing, and when they do, they don't ask for permission. Now he feels it, all of it, the emptiness in his routine, the missing piece in his peace, the sharp edge of your absence. But admitting that, that's where the ego steps in again, because saying I miss you feels like weakness. Reaching out feels like surrender, and the ego doesn't like to surrender, even when the heart is screaming for it. So instead, he hovers, watches you from the shadows, sends passive signals, checks in without really checking in. He'll like a story but won't message. He'll post something vague hoping you'll see it. He wants to be seen without being exposed. He wants to be missed without having to say he misses you. But the more you stay grounded, unshaken, and unavailable, the louder the war gets. His ego says move on, but his emotions say go back. His ego says she didn't matter, but his emotions replay every moment with you on loop. And the truth is, both parts of him are right in their own way, but only one leads to growth. This battle doesn't resolve quickly, because choosing emotions over ego requires humility, accountability, a willingness to face the pain he caused, not just to you, but to himself. That's where many men get stuck, not in loving you, but in admitting they did it wrong. And by the time his emotions gain the courage to speak, you're no longer available to hear them. This is the cost of pride, the price of pretending not to care. It's a quiet storm, one that brews behind the eyes of a man who lost more than he was ever willing to admit. His ego wanted silence. His heart wanted softness, but you chose self-respect, and now he's left in the middle of that storm, unable to move forward, unable to go back. He's stuck between his own reflection and the ghost of the woman who gave him everything before giving herself back.
At the end of it all, what truly sets you apart isn't how loud you loved, how deeply you hurt, or even how gracefully you walked away. It's how powerfully you protected your peace when everything in you wanted to break. That peace didn't come easy. It was earned through sleepless nights, quiet realizations, and the slow rebuilding of the woman you were always meant to be. But there's strength in walking away without making a scene. There's power in not explaining yourself, in no longer needing closure, in not responding to the chaos that once kept you on edge. When you choose peace, you choose you. And that's a decision so few people ever make, especially when their heart is still attached. Your peace is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of clarity. It's the moment you stop begging for effort. It's when you realize your worth isn't tied to how someone sees you, but how you've come to see yourself. You stop needing to be chosen because you've already chosen yourself. And that level of emotional maturity, that's rare, that's magnetic. The most beautiful part, your peace makes noise all by itself. It speaks without words. It shows in the way you carry yourself, the way your energy no longer bends for temporary love, the way you glow without needing an audience. And yes, he sees it. Yes, it stings, but it's not about him anymore. It never was. Peace is the final stage of power. It's not passive. It's a statement, a declaration that says, I am no longer at war with myself for the sake of keeping someone else. And once you find it, you'll never trade it for attention again. So no matter how the story ended, if you walked away with your peace, you didn't lose, you won. Quietly, completely, and in a way that no one can ever take from you again. The moment you decide to take back your energy is the moment everything shifts. You stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even offer you a bandage. You stop showing up for someone who kept treating your presence like a backup plan. And you realize that your love, your time, your attention, those are not freebies. They are currency. And it's time to stop handing them out where there's no return. Taking back your energy doesn't mean you never cared. It means you finally care about yourself more. You finally realize that overgiving isn't love, it's self-abandonment.
That checking in on someone who stopped checking on you isn't loyalty, it's emotional neglect. And the more you kept pouring into someone who couldn't hold what you gave, the more you were draining yourself, quietly, slowly, completely. But not anymore. Now you're reclaiming every piece of yourself you gave away, trying to be enough for someone who wasn't ready. You're no longer explaining your worth, proving your heart, or staying where the energy feels heavy. You're returning to your center, and that's your real comeback. It starts with small moments, saying no without guilt, choosing rest instead of chasing validation, unfollowing what triggers you, creating boundaries without long explanation. And as you do that, something powerful happens. Your spirit gets lighter, your mind gets clearer, and your glow becomes undeniable, because your energy is sacred. It's not meant to be tossed at inconsistency, confusion, or convenience. It's meant for places that water you, people who match you, spaces that feel safe, soft, and stable. So no, you don't need closure. You don't need to hear, "I'm sorry." You just need to take your energy back and reinvest it into yourself, into your growth, your healing, your joy, your future. You don't owe anyone access to a version of you they mishandled. Let them feel your absence. Let your distance speak louder than the words they never listened to. This is your soft reset, your quiet revolution, your full circle moment. You're not bitter, you're better. Because this time, your love goes where it's valued, and your energy stays home.